Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio on this Thursday, January the 11th, 2024. Again, Tim Wildman here, and welcome to the program. Joining me, I'm remote today. In studio is Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Tim.
Christopher Woodward.
Hello.
And in Kansas City, Kansas is our good buddy Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Doing well. How's the weather in KCKS?
Listen, we want to say here in Kansas City, we welcome all our friends from Miami who are coming in for the playoff game Saturday night. Tim, it's going to be 0 at kickoff with minus 25 wind chill. So welcome to Kansas City. We're so glad to have you.
Oh, man.
I don't care how rabid a fan I am. I'm staying in Miami and watching it on TV, I think. Wow. 0? No kidding?
0.
That's just
0 at kickoff, minus 20. And I guess in the second half it's going to be about minus 2 or minus.
Is that all?
That all, right?
You know, a couple things about that. I've thought about that when these warm weather teams go play cold weather teams,
Right.
in this case extreme cold weather, at playoff time. That, you know, they're coming from a warm, obviously Miami, you know, a warm place, but the players on the teams are from all over the country.
Right.
So, you know, that in that respect, I don't think it affects either team one way or another.
It's going to be 0 on both sides of the field, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about like the Miami Dolphins players. Right. They're drafted from all over America, just like the Kansas City players are. Anyway, it's going to be brutal. Brutal on, is that Saturday night or Sunday night?
Saturday night, yeah, about 7 o'clock.
Saturday night. All right, a lot to talk about. We appreciate you joining us, folks. If you want to watch on the internet, go to Facebook and type in Facebook Live and type in Today's Issues, rather. And if you want to watch on our streaming service, streaming.afa.net, streaming.afa.net, we offer a live streaming service of most of our radio programs here if you want to check us out that way. And we also post the stories that we discuss on our Today's Issues Facebook page. And Brent Creeley, our producer, you got us back on YouTube recently. How do they watch on YouTube?
They can go to YouTube and search for AFA Live Stream, AFA Live Stream, and it will be one or two videos below, and they'll click on it and they'll see us live.
Okay, there you go. And all right, a lot happening in our world. Steve Paisley Jordahl will be along with us next half hour. At the top of the hour, the next hour. And then we also got Jan Markell and Alex McFarland coming along during this hour to talk. So we look forward to visiting with them. All right, Chris, you're the one with the first news story?
Yes, sir.
Is there some kind of presidential primary or caucus going on or something? I've been seeing something like that in the news or something.
Yes, the Iowa caucuses are scheduled for Monday, despite all the cold weather, frigid weather, snow, ice, all that good stuff. Republicans and Democrats still say they're going to gather at this point to make their picks for president and decide some other things there. Yes, Democrats are also going to have a caucus, but we're not going to know those results until later this year. When
really, Chris?
They're meeting.
Is it going to be a suspenseful? Are you talking about in Iowa? You mean the same night the Republicans are caucusing, the Democrats are caucusing?
Yes,
they're meeting in a phone booth.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's one fella, I can't even remember the guy's name. He's running against Biden as a Democrat. What's his name? Anybody know here?
All
right.
He's a congressman from Michigan or Minnesota.
What about Marianne Williamson? Isn't she?
Yeah.
You know,
she's
the new age.
Author.
Yeah, the author.
Yeah, the author.
Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips.
Okay. Anyway, they're caucusing in Iowa, too. The Democrats are the same night as the Republicans are, but I think attendance will be way down.
Probably would.
I think if they take an offering, you're going to get $7 across the state.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, at least they pay their fair share.
So, but all eyes are on the Republican side because you do have President Trump, former President Trump. You have Governor DeSantis of Florida, and you have former Governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley. Basically, those are the three that will everybody will be watching to see how they do. Correct?
Right. Yes. Chris Christie will not be on that list because last night Chris Christie suspended his presidential campaign in a speech. And while that has gotten some news coverage, the juicier topic, and we have this video on our website, afn.net, the juicier
Besides
topic,
the Democrat primary, which
Yes.
is juicy.
Yes. There was a hot mic moment with Christie in which he did not realize the mic was live, and he was talking with people. I'm not sure who they are, but he took a couple of jabs at Nikki Haley, and somebody in close proximity to Christie also speculated that DeSantis might soon be on his way out. I've got the audio here of the hot mic moment. It is clip 5.
Like that. Yeah, that's what you get. Yeah, I mean, look, she spent $68 million so far, just on TV. Spent $68 million so far, $59 million by DeSantis, and we spent 12. I mean, who's punching above their weight and who's getting a return on their investment, you know? And she's going to get smoked, and you and I both know it. She's not up to this.
She hasn't even been.
She's still 20 points behind Trump in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
And he's still going to carry Iowa, right?
Yes, always. I talked to DeSantis called me, petrified that I would.
He's probably getting out after Iowa.
Well,
And that's where it ended. Somebody
DeSantis called
discovered
him
the microphone.
Yeah.
I think DeSantis called him petrified of the temperatures in Iowa on caucus night.
Yeah.
So that was what they call a hot mic, which means Christie there, himself a former governor of New Jersey. Chris Christie, he was talking off the cuff, not knowing that he was being recorded necessarily. But that was a hot mic comment. So anyway, so he's predicting Governor Haley, Nikki Haley. Anyway, we heard him.
Yeah.
Right.
This was
Get smoked.
This was brought up during a Fox News town hall event with former President Donald Trump. I've got several clips from Donald Trump today. But speaking of the Chris Christie situation, Martha McCallum and Brett Baer did ask the former president what he thought about Christie's hot mic comments there. Clip 6.
You know, Chris Christie was in, and he got a hot mic I heard about. I thought actually the bigger story wasn't the fact that he dropped out. Nobody cared too much about that. But he had a hot mic where he was talking to somebody about the weather, and he happened to say that she doesn't have what it takes. She'll be creamed in the election. And, I mean, I know her very well, and I happen to believe that Chris Christie's right. That's one of the few things he's been right about, actually.
That's very vintage Donald Trump there, taking advantage of that.
Well, listen, let me just say this. Of course, President Trump is heavily favored, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I mentioned this before. Iowa has to go for Ron DeSantis, to him to sustain a viable campaign. He's been to every county. He's put all his eggs in that basket. We've talked about that before. With respect to Governor Haley, Nikki Haley, she has a chance to win New Hampshire. That would be an upset of former President Trump, but she has a chance to win New Hampshire. And the reason I say that is she's polling second. She's closer. She's within 15 points of the president, if you believe the polls. And with Christie dropping out, I gotta think in New Hampshire, Ray, Christie's votes, such that they were 12% or whatever it was, will probably go over to Nikki Haley. So she's got an outside shot at winning New Hampshire, and those are the first two states voting.
So DeSantis, he either needs to win Iowa or he's got to come in really strong, right?
Yeah.
Nikki Haley,
he's got to come. He's got to tie. This is my opinion. I'm just
Right,
one person,
right.
but I just think that in order for him to continue to fundraise and to go forward, it would be very difficult if he didn't at least tie Trump.
if he comes in way under expectations, I don't see how he goes to New Hampshire because he's already polling underneath Trump and Nikki Haley.
I
So
don't
I
either.
kind of think, Tim, I think it's this way. DeSantis really needs to win Iowa. Nikki Haley really needs to win New Hampshire, or it's going to be over really early.
Yes, and I don't think Trump has to win either one.
No.
to keep going, obviously, and to win, because he's still favored in many of the other states. So, but if, these folks, I tell you what, I admire anybody that's going to stick their neck out in politics. And Chris Christie, I'm not a fan of a lot of what he says and does, but at the same time, he and Haley and Trump and DeSantis, they're all out there duking it out, and I admire that. Fred, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting watching the demeanor of Trump last night in this town hall in Iowa. Brett Baer and Martha McCallum of Fox were there. And somebody else commented, so it's not an initial comment from me, but they said he looked like he had already moved beyond the primaries, that he's really confident that he is going to be on the top of the ticket, and he wants to put everything behind him. Chris Christie, that's nice. He announced tonight that he's finished. And I don't think he's worried at all about DeSantis or Nikki Haley. That was the environment. That was kind of, and of course, he had a very friendly audience. It's all Donald Trump audience last night. So that was kind of the mood. I didn't see that kind of nastiness that we have seen in Trump over the last couple of months. I just saw a guy who says, hey, listen, I've got this. I want to move on. And his target now is Joe Biden. It's not so much Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis anymore.
Chris?
Well, in addition to sharing some thoughts on Chris Christie and that hot mic situation, the subject of Ron DeSantis and Dr. Anthony Fauci also came up during the Trump town hall on Fox. I've got a little bit of the audio here. And again, the moderators were Martha McCallum and Brett Baer. And here is a moment in which they were talking with Donald Trump about Ron DeSantis and Fauci. Clip 14.
And of course, Ron DeSantis would definitely argue with your characterization of how he handled it.
But if you go back and look at the records, you will see that the biggest fan of Dr. Fauci was Ron DeSanctimonious. He was a big fan. He said, I go by, exactly, quote, I go by what Dr. Fauci said. He said that 2 months in, all the way through, and then eventually changed when it wasn't, that wasn't the dessert of the day. But Ron DeSantis was a big Dr. Fauci fan, and nobody wants to cover that. I say it every time.
I'm well on record. I'm just exhausted with Trump's name calling. Governor DeSantis, duly elected twice of Florida. And what if DeSantis went on TV every time and said, Fat Donnie, Fat Donnie did this and Fat Donnie did that and Fat Donnie, we'd all say that's disqualifying, that's disrespectful. And you should not be treating other candidates with that kind of a name calling. But with Trump, he just, calls Nikki Haley a bird brain and DeSanctimonious and all this stuff. Anyway, I don't think that's helpful at all, but it doesn't seem to hurt him. I think a lot of his fans just laugh and cheer about things like that. But I do think it's demeaning to the overall, I guess, presidential politics, I guess you could say. But anyway, back to what he said there about Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, being the biggest fan of Fauci. All right, let me just say this. At first, it was true. Ron DeSantis did praise Fauci, and everybody else in the country did, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't take DeSantis was the first one to catch on to what was going on here. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you remember back, he opened up Florida pretty quick. He shut it down, and then he opened it back up pretty quick when he realized what was going on. So for President Trump to say that Ron DeSantis was the biggest fan of Fauci is not true. That's just not true. It was President Trump who gave Dr. Fauci a presidential medal.
That's right.
The day he left, his last day in office. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then President Trump, do you have this clip with Martha McCallum of saying, Trump says, I don't know who gave him the award.
I do not have that.
Okay, well,
I will post a link, though.
Trump, she said to him, Martha McCallum, Ray, she said to President Trump, this is another interview, this wasn't last night, said to President Trump, why did you give Dr. Fauci an award? And he said, I don't know who gave him the award. She said, well, you did. Your last day in office. You gave him a presidential award, which is a fact. So anyway, I just think a lot of this, I understand, is the rough and tumble of presidential politics. People say things, make exaggerations. But some things are just blatantly factually false and need to be called out. Go ahead.
Well, look, without Mr. Trump, the rest of us wouldn't have heard of Anthony Fauci. He had his career over there at the NIH and the other things he did and this research and stuff around the world. Mm-hmm. But it is Donald Trump who made Dr. Fauci a household name with those daily updates from Fauci and that woman with the scarves.
Dr. Briggs.
Right, Dr. Briggs. He made them famous. Without Donald Trump, we wouldn't even be talking about Anthony Fauci. So it's not just a question of what Donald Trump did on the last day in office. I mean, it's absurd that he finished his time in the White House by giving that man, of all people, an award and pretending. He's just pretending he doesn't remember that. But it's just unbelievable.
We've talked about this before. I think every one of us understand that our country in the world, but our country was put in a crisis,
right?
And it was something that was unforeseen, and President Trump was put in a bind. He's everything's rocking along fine,
right?
In his administration, pretty much. Economy's going good.
He's headed for re-election, we all thought, right?
And people with white coats walk into his Oval Office and say, we got to shut the country down. He's going, what? What? And so he did. President Trump decided to go with the medical experts and do what they said, which was shut the country down. Listen, I don't fault him in his responses. We were all... on the fly, right?
Right.
Huh?
Right.
So President Trump, I think, was doing the very best he could at the time, given the circumstances and what he was facing. And he was a businessman. He wasn't a medical doctor or scientist. So he's having to listen to these experts in this area. So I don't fault him, President Trump, for I know some people fault him more than I do about shutting the country down. What I fault him for is when he says that Governor DeSantis was one of the worst, and when President Trump was in office, he was praising Governor DeSantis and Governor Kemp and others for their handling of COVID. So anyway, that was one of the remarks that President Trump made last night. What else you got, Chris?
Well, because former President Trump is an equal employment opportunity criticizer, he did take on Joe Biden. President Biden last night had some things to say about the current occupant of the White House. Clip 2.
You can't put two sentences together, and he's representing us on nuclear weapons with Putin and Xi. The new narrative they have, as you know, is I'm going to be a dictator. That's going to be the new narrative, because a guy like Biden, there's nothing he can run on. I think you look at Joe Biden, it's bedlam. You have a man who can't lead. You have a man who can't find his way off a stage after he makes a speech that lasts for about 2 minutes. We are going to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country.
Some of those things were strung together.
That is what Trump has to do going forward right now. I agree with you guys. Just leave behind the attacks on DeSantis and Nikki Haley.
That'd be sanctimonious to you, Fred.
Yes, that's right. To quote.
Well, listen, if you're going to leave behind the attacks, you better quit calling man names.
Oh, absolutely.
Start right there.
Absolutely.
And Nikki Haley, too, I'd say needs to quit calling her bird brain and refer to her in a more respectful way. That way you can team build and get the whole Republican Party behind you. You don't need to keep on with these childish antics.
Yeah,
that would be my advice if Trump listened to anybody.
Turn your guns on Biden. Biden is a big target. He's a big target. There is so much to go after Biden about.
Yeah, I agree. All right, you're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. What do you got next, Christopher?
Oh, man, there's
so anything else? Anything going on in the world?
Well, while
any windows blown out of jets 15,000 feet?
No,
recently?
but interestingly enough, that the company that owns that airline and a few others has decided to ground some of those flights of that particular aircraft, which may cause a couple of hundred flights to be canceled between now through Saturday. Weather's probably also going to be a factor for some flights to begin with.
There was another similar incident involving that type of aircraft, I think last night on a United flight coming out of Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
They got a warning light about a door, and they circled and landed right away. There's just kind of an interesting story behind this, and we're starting to get the details. If there are some carriers who buy this 737 that want to put more than 200 seats in that aircraft, and there is an obligation that when you go beyond 200 seats, you have to add a door. But most of the airlines buying this aircraft don't want more than 200 seats, so they invented this plug. And so they put this plug in there, and because it's lighter than a door. And that matters to airlines. So we're finding out that there have been loose bolts in these plugs. This is a big problem for Boeing. It really is.
Listen, if you're going to tell me that the problem is fixed with the airplane and the window panel blowing out, you're going to have to use a word bigger than plug to make me feel better about it, Ray. What about you? If the pilot comes on and said, "People, don't worry about it. We got it
plugged. We've plugged up the hole back in the back. Don't worry about anything."
Yeah.
Right. No.
When I get on, I usually ask for a window seat, but I've been watching the video of that poor guy who said, "I like window seats, but I don't like it this much."
Oh my word! Again, thank the Lord, nobody was hurt in that incident. That was Alaskan Airlines.
Alaska Airlines, yeah.
They were going. Was it somewhere? When they going to San Francisco to Minneapolis or something like that?
I'm not sure if they came out of Seattle. They had to make the emergency landing in Portland.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
Here's a prediction from that incident. The cell phone that was found, that's going to be a commercial.
Yeah, I agree.
The cell phone is still working.
Right, still working.
When that first happened and we realized it wasn't as bad as maybe we thought based on the video and audio and all that stuff, somebody did joke on social media, this is what happens when you don't put your phone on airplane mode.
Oh, my word. You're right, though, Fred. That will be a commercial for somebody.
I'll tell you what.
Whoever made that phone.
Yes.
All right, let's go ahead and take our break right here. You're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Fred, Chris, Ray, Jan Markell from Understanding the Times Radio, heard each weekend on American Family Radio, will join us after the break. And then we're also going to talk to Dr. Alex McFarland. And that's coming up in a few minutes as well. We appreciate you listening to American Family Radio. Stay warm, stay dry, and we'll be back in a couple minutes.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Once upon a time, a group of people decided to build a new building. It would be an unusual building, one which the likes of the world had never seen. They decided that they would call this new building America. Instead of having only one pillar underneath to support the structure as previous buildings had had, they decided that their new building would have 3 pillars on which to rest. Each of these 3 pillars would hold an equal weight of the building. They named these 3 pillars home, school, and church. So the group began building their new building called America, and underneath they supported it with the 3 pillars of home, school, and church. The people labored on that new building until they died. But their children catching a glimpse of the dream that their forefathers had, continued to work on the building and to keep strong the three supporting pillars. Several generations worked hard to make that building the most treasured and admired building in all the world. They gave of themselves freely as they continued to work on the building. And they always made sure that the supporting pillars of home, school, and church were strong. They knew that the existence of the building called America rested upon the strength of those three pillars. However, several generations after the building was started, some people questioned the need of three pillars. They figured that it could stand on only two. So they began to ignore the pillar of church. Soon that pillar became weakened due to neglect. When this happened, more weight of the building called America was shifted to the two pillars of home and school. The people noticed that the foundation underneath the building called America was weakening, and they blamed many things, but they seldom referred to the weakened pillar of church. Before long, because of the weakening of the pillar of church, the pillar of home became weaker also, and this was followed by a weakening of the pillar of school. Many people tried to get the building called America on a good foundation again by strengthening the weakened pillar of church. But most of the people scoffed at them, calling them old-fashioned people with outdated ideas. The people tried many methods to strengthen the building called America, but none of the methods included the strengthening of the pillar of church. One day, this building called America collapsed. One of the residents, crushed underneath the falling structure, called out, "No building like America can ever stand except on the three equal pillars of home, school, and church." And with that, history wrote its final chapter on the construction of the building called America. Is this a true story? Let's hope not.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek Him in His temple. Psalm 27:4.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening. I'm Tim Wildman with Ray Pritchard, Fred Jackson, Chris Woodward, and now our good friend Jan Markell joins us from sunny, well, I don't know if it's sunny or not, or is it always sunny in Minnesota? Jan Markell from Understanding the Times and radio program at Olive Tree Ministries. Good morning, Jan.
Well, thank you, Tim. Always good to be with you.
You know what we're going to ask you, right?
Yeah.
First question.
It's sunny.
Pretty cliche
it's sunny,
by
but
now.
Not balmy.
No. What is it, like 10?
Well, it's okay today, but in a few days it will feel like the planet Pluto. It'll be like 30 and 40 below wind chill. That's wind chill. By Monday, Tuesday, yeah. You don't want a vacation up here in the winter.
Okay. So it's too cold even for the ice fishermen, is what you're saying.
Well, ironically, since you bring that up, because we've had such a mild winter to date,
Right.
The ice is too thin for a lot of the ice houses up here. Some fishermen have gotten stranded because ice is broken away, and it's just a freaky winter. And then, like as I say, in 4 or 5 days it'll be like the moon. So, stick around; it'll change in a few days. So
some ice fishermen got stranded?
Yes. They did, way up north. Yeah, they did. It was quite a story. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember. Yeah. Yes, I do remember hearing about that. I didn't realize it was in Minnesota. Well, Fred, you got a question for Sister Jan?
Absolutely, Jan. Great to have you. You've written an article in your winter. I happened to get it into my mailbox this week.
Sure.
And the title of your article is "The Day That Changed the World," and of course, you're talking about October the 7th. But what has happened since the massacre of those more than 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children has shocked the world also. Your take on all of this?
Well, I maintain, and I had Michelle Bachmann on radio with me perhaps 3 weeks after that incident, and we concurred on air that it's like some demons were released that day. That certainly the perpetrators were demonized, but it seems like demons were released, and not just in that area. It just seems like demons were released all over the world, as and perhaps they could be called, Israel derangement syndrome demons. Went literally around the world in a matter of a week or two, and we saw over time millions demonstrating on behalf of who? The persecuted Israelis, the Israelis who were savagely attacked. No, the world was demonstrating on behalf of barbarians. They were demonstrating on behalf of terrorists. And I realized that at that point, Fred, that our world is more upside down than I ever thought it would be in my lifetime, and that we were watching the ultimate and evil being called good, Isaiah 5:20.
Jan, this is Ray speaking. I'm looking at your article here, and you make the case, I think, very strongly. And I encourage folks to check out. I'm looking at the online version of your newsletter. It's very well done. You say,
thank you.
This has apocalyptic overtones, and you talk about the proverbial genie being gotten out of the bottle. You can't put it back in the bottle. Our world has forever changed. What is different now than, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Because you're right. Something has happened. Something has happened around the world. The anti-Semitism is not just out there, but it's open and it's accepted. It's even praised. So when you say apocalyptic overtones, what do you mean?
Well, obviously we know from the Bible that that Israel's going to become the world's burdensome stone. That's Zechariah 12. So we know that Israel, again, I go back to this Israel derangement syndrome. And Ray, I maintain that was undercover up until October the 7th. It was out there, of course. Anti-Semitism has existed since a couple thousand years or more. But somehow on that day with that incident, this became sort of global national policy that we hate Jews. That's what I didn't... You see, what's going to happen is this is all trending towards that biblical tribulation where the Jews are in the epicenter of the Antichrist's wrath, and he will try to annihilate them and will have some great success. 2/3 of the Jews will perish during that time. So we're trending towards that tribulation, but I think this was all undercover up until that early October. You didn't see people demonstrating in the major capitals of the Western world on behalf of the Palestinian/Hamas cause. You just didn't see that. Sure, it was probably underneath things, but then right after that incident, it became very popular, very cool, very chic to be pro-Hamas. Who is pro-Hamas? Who has a straight mind? Do we realize what they are capable of? And as everyone has said, it may be Israel now here in 2023, early 2024. Their goal is Islamize the world. So the goal is the world. This is a very serious, shocking thing that's going on. I don't think people Christians particularly, fully realize it.
Jan, as we sit here today, South Africa has won a hearing before the World Court in The Hague, and they are there to argue that Israel is carrying out genocide in its response to the Hamas terrorists. It's absolutely amazing.
It is amazing, Fred, and isn't it interesting that South Africa would do that when they have a genocide going on there against some whites, and particularly white farmers? in South Africa. So you know what? I think the bottom line here is this is now an upside-down world, and we all knew it was upside down before, but never to the degree that it is an upside-down world now. And I just think we're further rushing towards what the Bible talks about the last days. We're in them, but we're coming to sort of the crescendo of those last days, which I believe is the rapture of believers. And that's other theologies may want to debate that, but that's what this ministry believes. And quite frankly, that's actually very good news.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Jan, let me ask you about the rise of the Antichrist, because you mentioned that just briefly as part of the article. So how, and I know we are speculating at this point, we don't know the future, only God does, but how will the Antichrist rise to power when we see the world, as you said, turned upside down and anti-Semitism let loose? How will he ever be able to convince the Jews to sign some sort of peace agreement, or how? Give us a scenario in which you think it could happen.
Well, I think that Israel is going to grow weary of, let's say, fences that fail, and quite frankly, their security fence there in the Gaza area completely failed. I think Israel's going to grow weary of a lot of treaties or so-called peace talks that produce very, very little, and somehow this Antichrist is going to come along with such amazing skill, such amazing diplomatic skill and oratory skills, and he's going to convince them that he can guarantee them peace and security. And can you imagine, even today, if that happened, because they're desperate over there, their country is reeling because their economy is nearly shut down. No tourism, all the businesses in the north and south are shut. The kibbutzim, particularly in the north and the south, are shut. That means the economy is on a free fall to fail. Can you imagine if somebody came along right now today and said, I'll fix all of this for you, and in the process, the rest of the world will stabilize because we'll get the Middle East stabilized. We'll get the 7 nations that are on her, let's just say, staring down at her from, Lebanon, the 7 nations right now, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, etc. And if he can calm all those nations, but then calm all the tension around the world, do you not think that the world will leap at this opportunity? But the Jews will start it out. The Jews will say, we need peace and security so desperately. This is the man we will trust. It'll be cunning. It'll be diabolical. It'll be demonic. But it will be effective because the Bible says so.
All right, listen, Jan, what's coming up this weekend on your show?
Well, we'll talk about these things and some related things. Tim Moore and Nathan Jones, Lamb Lion Ministry, will be with me for the hour. I think your audience, and we love your audience, will find it very helpful.
All right, Jan, well, thanks so much. Keep up the good work, and thanks for being on with us this morning.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Goodbye.
Take care, Jan.
Okay, goodbye. Jan Markell joining us from Minnesota. Her program is called Understanding the Times. It airs weekends on American Family Radio. And we encourage you to listen. Jan always has very interesting topics and guests. Fred, you've even been to a couple of Jan's conferences, haven't you?
Absolutely. Some of these conferences, 6,000 people coming to these conferences. And it's because Jan does a great job of looking at Bible prophecy and relating it to what's going on in our world right now. And what happened on October the 7th, and Jan has addressed this in a conversation with us today, makes no rational sense. Within 24 hours after these Israeli men, women, and children were massacred, you had, for example, 34 student groups on Harvard's campus demonstrating for Hamas and against Israel. Less than 24 hours after that happened. That doesn't make any rational sense whatsoever. To celebrate the people who have just massacred 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children. And that's why we know this is spiritual at its very core, and it goes to what biblical prophecy talks about. The hatred for the Jewish people, God's chosen people, that will continue. And as Jan has noted, the rapture will occur. Antichrist will come along and offer a peace. And we know the rest of the story. 3 years, 3.5 years into that tribulation, he will break that peace with Israel, and we will have the greatest tribulation the earth has ever seen in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation.
Ray, I saw you shaking your head there. You want to comment?
You know, the thing that Jan is pointing out, I think, is right. When she uses that phrase, the genie is out of the bottle, something has changed. We've always known anti-Semitism has been around. It's been around since the days of Abraham. So we're talking 4,000 years. But now it's out on the loose. So, and it's been shocking to me to see even some so-called evangelical Christians who join in with some of these things. So very clearly, friends, what Jan said's right, and Fred, what you said, of course, 100% right. Let's just say to all our listeners, Jesus is coming.
Yeah.
Jesus is coming. He's coming soon. Everybody better get ready, which talks about your relationship with the Lord, your family, your friends. At the end of the day, Jesus is coming. I believe he's coming soon.
Amen.
People get ready.
Amen.
Amen. Well, Dr. Alex McFarland joins us now, heard each weekday afternoon on American Family Radio with Brother Bert Harper with Exploring the Word, which is a live radio Bible study program. So, hey, Alex, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Just enjoying listening to the feed here. This is great content.
Alex, I want to ask you, when we're talking about, we'll stay on this subject for a few minutes here. Anti-Semitism, for those maybe who are new to that expression, although I think everybody's heard that, we're talking about a hatred of Jewish people because they're Jewish. Is that right?
Yeah, you know, it's really inexplicable. And I think the just disproportionately high level of animus against the Jewish people is a proof that we're living in a supernatural world. And let me say, since October 7, I've interviewed a number of Jewish scholars, some born-again Christians like Dr. Michael Brown, and some not necessarily believers in Jesus. But even the term anti-Semitism had its origins in the Third Reich, because Jew hatred, even the Nazis felt like the term Jew hatred was kind of like in your face. So anti-Semitic is really a politically tinged term to soften what is a terrible thing that is animosity against God's
along those
people.
lines, a Semite is a person from the Middle East, or
from the line of Shem,
from the Mediterranean region, right? No, it's not. It doesn't have a more of a broad, generic definition than just anti-Jewish. I'm talking about when you say a Semite.
Yeah. Exactly. The Middle Eastern people who may or may not be ethnic Jews or practicing Jews. But isn't it funny, guys, that in this world of, social justice and, anti-racism, and of course we should be against racism, but the racism that seems to get a pass is racism against the Jewish people.
All right. I'm gonna try to articulate. I know a lot of the hatred and the anti-Semitism, hatred for the Jews, anti-Semitism is irrational. It really is. It doesn't. But here's what they're going to say, guys. I mean, by they, I mean these people who express disdain for the Jews, or the people maybe who are more fair-minded, but they're going to say, "Oh yeah, but the Jews aren't always right." What they're going to say, Alex, is that the Jews occupy the land that the Palestinians occupied. In other words, the United Nations gave the Jews the land of Israel, and that's what started all this. And they're occupying land that these Palestinians lived on for centuries, and they pushed them out, and that's the conflict, and it's not going to be resolved till the Jews get out of Israel. And basically, that's what they're saying. In other words, they're colonizers.
Well,
the Jews.
yes.
Go ahead and talk about that.
And anti-colonization is a mantra of the woke left these days. But it's interesting wherever, like Britain being forced out of India, land they previously held. Whenever the colonization sounds harsh and bad, but yet it brought structure and brought common law and civility to different lands. But in the case of the Middle East and Israel, there could not be a more indigenous people than the Jewish people in the land of Israel, because 3,000 years before the birth of Muhammad and the start of Islam, the Jews inhabited the land of Israel and what is now Jerusalem. And so, without question, the land of Israel belongs by historical precedent, and I would also say by divine right. It's the land of the Jewish people. But here's the thing. One thing that the world over, from time immemorial, nations and individuals have the right to self-defense. And this just shows the inconsistency and the hypocrisy of the woke left, that the very same social justice warriors that they want America to give the United States back to Native Americans and Canada back to the indigenous tribes, they will not acknowledge Israel's right to self-defense, to national self-determination.
And why is that?
Because, the hyper-tolerant left are selective in their tolerance. And I think we need to point out that selective tolerance is intolerance. The left is tolerant only with those who go along with their global, relativistic New World Order. But for those of us that actually believe in truth and objective morality, suddenly the tolerance has run out.
Ray, you said the Jew. When were the Jews first called the Jews, Ray?
Well, you'd have to go way back into the Old Testament to find that. They're called. I was reading Exodus, and it uses the term the Hebrews, right? Mm-hmm. Uses the Hebrews goes back to at least the book of Exodus. And Alex, maybe you can help me with that.
Well, yeah, it was from Judah. They were called Jews because of the tribe of Judah.
Okay. One of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Exactly. And just remember Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the Middle Eastern people, and specifically the Jewish people, were the Shemites. So anti-Semitism, you might say. Now, the Hamites were the people that would ultimately inhabit the continent of Africa. We, Gentiles and, Caucasian and Proto-European people are from Japheth. But isn't it interesting, the entirety of the human race in all of her permutations goes back to the three sons of Noah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. That's Alex McFarland, and he joins us from North Carolina. Fred, you look like you got a question here or a comment.
Well, can we change subjects a little bit with Alex? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Our brother Abe last night on his program had a shocking story out of Australia that I'd like to get Alex a response to. The state of Victoria in Australia, they have the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission. Mm-hmm. They have laid out prayer practices. It is against the law there to issue a prayer in public that puts homosexuality in a negative light. The state has passed.
Where is this?
This is the state of Victoria in Australia.
I'll share a link.
All right. There's a story. TheDailySignal.com has a story on this. According to the commission, prayers that are directed at a person to change or suppress their sexual orientation or gender identity cause harm and are prohibited.
Wow.
And then they go on.
That's a Western country, obviously, Australia.
Yes.
That's your point you're making. That kind of thing might spread.
Absolutely, because of the thinking that we have in this country today about accepted speech.
folks, you have to understand the LGBTQ trans agenda is about obstructing the gospel. And I mean, conventional wisdom says, they want affirmation and mainstream acknowledgement. But look, when the Church of Jesus Christ is forbidden to tell sinners how to be saved, this is the true color of this agenda. And by the way, when a government is telling the church how they can and can't pray, we need to go back to Luke 11. It says, Jesus taught his disciples to pray, Our Father who art in heaven. We need to say, hey, woke government, thanks very much, but our Lord has already taught us how to pray, and so we don't really need your coaching. But guys, I'm going to tell you, and to everybody listening, look, I love the Lord. I'm a happy camper. Life is good. But the time is here. I'm not going to say the time is coming. I'm going to say the time is here where you have to decide, will I stand for Christ no matter the cost? Will I defend truth and take my stand on biblically informed convictions regardless of the repercussions? Because our world has set itself up against God.
Great admonition there and warning, Alex. Hey, Alex, got a couple of minutes left here. It's 2024 now. It's January. Everybody's looking forward to the spring and summer. You got these youth camps. You going to do those again this year?
Praise the Lord. Yes. And Tim, thank you so much. Last summer we had 1,200 kids in 7 camps. Thanks to AFR allowing me to promote. And the website is equipretreat.org. equipretreat.org, and we'll be doing camps, and we're teaching kids about God and country.
Where are you going to do them? Can you list them?
Montana, New Jersey, Indiana, South Carolina, Georgia. Let's see, there's 2 others. I have 7 states. And by the way, grown-ups, we have camp for you too. It's called The Cove, July 12th through 14th. I'll be at the Billy Graham Training Center. But yes, we'll be all over, and it's for middle school, high schoolers. Obviously, number one, we talk to kids about how to know the Lord and be born again. But we talk about America. And I say this, and whenever I do secular media, it kind of makes them nervous. But we're trying to woke-proof America's teens, and it's going to be phenomenal. Critical theory, by the way, maybe sometime I can talk to you guys about what an insidious philosophy that is. But Tim, thanks. Yes, it's summer's
last
coming
year
soon.
You were in Tennessee too, right? So
yeah, I'm not sure if we're in Tennessee this year or not. Temple, Georgia, New Jersey, Indiana, Montana, Colorado. Oh, Colorado! I left out Colorado. That's the biggest one of all. Is in Colorado. But the website for our youth camps.
Actually, I think they've taken your. Actually, Alex, I think they've taken your camp off the ballot there.
Exactly.
In Colorado, if you haven't heard already.
We're teaching kids about God and country, and the tolerant left doesn't.
All right, what's the website for more information on these camps, and what ages are eligible?
Middle school and high school, and the website is equipretreat.org.
And they're very reasonably priced. I would encourage people to check them out. And you're going to be at all of them, Alex?
I'll be at all of them. And listen, I do the ropes course. I do the rock climbing. And we have a blast. And we drill down deeply into the Word of God.
Yeah. I think that would probably blast my back at my age. All right, Alex. Take care, my friend. Appreciate you.
God bless you all. God bless America.
Okay. We're going to take a short time out. We'll be back in 5 minutes with Steve Paisley Jordahl. We got some more happenings going on in our country and in our world. Chris, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Christopher Woodward. So Fred, Ray, and Tim. Yes, I'm talking in third person. I'll be back. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Hey, have you seen the AFR logo canvas duffel bag? There's plenty of room in the main compartment for big stuff, a front pocket for those smaller items, and a mesh pocket for your water bottle to help you stay hydrated. Double reinforced handles and an adjustable shoulder strap make it easy to carry, and the logo on the side is a great way to let others know about AFR. They're available now at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Hunter Biden will appear at an L.A. courthouse later today after he crashed a congressional committee meeting on Capitol Hill yesterday. Chad Pergram has more from Capitol Hill.
He goes to court today in California to face tax charges, which could land him in jail, but he could face prosecution once the full House votes to hold him in contempt of Congress, probably next week. Republicans are still shocked at Hunter Biden's audacity. The House is voting to hold Hunter Biden in contempt because he skipped a subpoena for a deposition in mid-December. Democrats asked why the GOP did not let Hunter Biden testify. Committee Republicans want Hunter Biden to appear for a deposition before a closed-door hearing. Democrats accuse the GOP of playing games with Hunter Biden.
Former President Donald Trump is in New York City today for closing arguments in his civil fraud trial. The judge in the case has barred him from delivering his own closing. Lydia Hu has more from New York City.
Trump said that this case never should have been brought in the first place. He called it political interference, and he again reiterated his desire to have an opportunity to speak inside the courtroom during closing arguments for himself.
As you know, I want to speak. I want to make the summation. At this moment, the judge is not letting me make the summation because I'll bring up things that he doesn't want to hear. And it's a very unfair trial.
Judge Arthur Engoron already found President Trump liable for fraud and ordered some of Trump's business licenses be canceled.
Law enforcement in Florida says a man arrested for child molestation was visiting from another state, where he works as a youth pastor. Eben Brown reports from Miami.
Deputies in Polk County, Florida, between Tampa and Orlando, say 69-year-old Richard Shaw was visiting the area over the Christmas holiday from Fremont County, Wyoming. And after he left, a 12-year-old girl told her mother Shaw had touched her inappropriately. Sheriff Grady Judd learned Shaw has been a youth pastor for decades.
When asked during the course of the investigation, should we trust you with a child, he said, no, I wouldn't. This guy is an evil person. He is a pedophile.
Now police in Wyoming are looking to see if he might have victimized children there as well. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
A Messianic Jewish leader says it is sad that Israel has to continually listen to the Biden administration trying to tell it what to do.
On a return trip to Israel, Secretary of State Antony Blinken once again pressured the Jewish state to put an end to its war with the Hamas terrorists, who massacred more than 1,200 Israeli men, women, and children on October 7th. Blinken cited promises from 4 Arab nations and Turkey to help in rebuilding Gaza after the war. But those nations also want a ceasefire in Gaza and concrete steps toward the eventual creation of a Palestinian state alongside Israel, something Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed not to allow. Jan Markell is founder and director of Olive Tree Ministries and host of Understanding the Times on American Family Radio.
It's sad that Israel even has to sit and listen to America trying to tell her what to do, but America provides so much military hardware and all that, equips her with her Iron Dome and things like that. So, I mean, Israel has to listen, but I don't think Netanyahu will abide by anything this man is saying, because I think it would be suicidal, because she has to defend her country from these barbarians that surround her.
But Markell says there is some hope that 2024 might bring a change.
The only way that there could be some daylight here would be if a conservative candidate were to get elected in November. I think any of those that are candidates would be a friend to Israel without exception.
I'm Chad Groening.
And finally, TSA found a record number of guns at airport security checkpoints in 2023.
The Transportation Security Administration says a record-setting 6,737 guns were found. At airport security checkpoints in 2023, almost all of them were loaded. And more than 1,100 of those guns were found at just 3 major airports: Atlanta, Dallas, and Houston. Passengers are only allowed to travel with declared, pre-checked, and unloaded firearms. Anyone caught with a gun at a TSA checkpoint will likely miss their flight, face arrest, and a fine of up to $15,000. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
So for God to speak is for God to engage in self-revelation. We only know God because God has condescended to speak to us.
The God Who Speaks is a 90-minute documentary that answers many of the common objections about the Bible's reliability. The film equips believers to confidently base their lives on the power of God's Word. It's available at streaming.afa.net. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim with Ray and Fred, and we thank you for listening. Steve Paisley-Jordahl joins us now. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
So, Steve, your
Sir?
wife's an Alabama fan, right?
She is an Alabama fan.
Yeah, and Nick Saban's retiring, is that right?
It's a dark day in Alabama history and Roll Tide history. Yes, Nick Saban decided he'd had enough. Was it 4 championships?
No.
6.
6 championships?
Six
I
at
can't.
Alabama.
I married into it, so I'm late to the game here. But
well, you better get that number right before you go home tonight.
I know, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but can I play the clip that I played this morning just before we get going here?
Yeah, for those who don't follow college football, I think most people still have heard of Nick Saban. He's the legendary football coach at the University of Alabama. He's won 6 national championships, played in a couple, 2 or 3 more. And so he's retiring at 70 age. What 70? What is he?
71, 72, I think.
Yeah.
72.
Yeah.
72 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And are these remarks he made yesterday, Steve?
No.
That you're going to play?
No, these are remarks. This is just, I found this. This is an example of his coaching character. This was not from yesterday. This is from some time in the past. But this is an example. I've seen several videos and clips of him coaching his players, and kind of character was a big issue with him. So I just want to play. This is him dispensing a little wisdom of what he looks for and what he expects from his players. Cut 13.
Starts with discipline. One of the terms that I came up with is run hard when it's hard to run, when it gets hard to run. And I think some of the younger guys on the team, it's hot, you get tired, not used to that many reps, but we need those reps so we can practice until we can't get it wrong, not just till we get it right. And I don't care if it's how you do flex, I don't care if it's how you run across the field, how you do karaoke, how you do high knee pumps, how you do up downs. If you don't respect that enough to do it right when you know that's the right way to do it, how are you going to be trusted in the game to do what you're supposed to do? Because I think discipline is a mindset that's a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Good advice for even if you don't play football.
Ray?
You know, there's a reason why Nick Saban has won 6 national championships at Alabama, plus 1 at LSU.
LSU,
right?
yeah.
I mean, there's a reason they call him the GOAT, the greatest of all time, because he had it set. And what was there's a little saying there, to run when you don't feel like running.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Some phrase like that. That is the true championship mindset, to do it when you don't feel like it. And those Alabama teams, he was at the top. It doesn't matter what happened this year. He leaves, don't you agree, at the very top.
Oh, no question about it. He's the greatest college football coach in history, without doubt. You know, a lot of people, Bear Bryant be number 2, in my opinion.
Another Alabama coach.
Probably get a little argument about that one. But Nick Saban, he had to win in the playoff era.
Right.
Okay. Bear Bryant didn't have to do that. Bear Bryant could play 11 regular season games and go to a bowl game and win national championships by a vote. The Associated Press, namely, voters. But Nick Saban's teams really had to prove it on the field and go to a conference championship game and then go to a couple of playoff games. So kudos to him. I know that a lot of people can't stand him, and most of that's just raw human jealousy. because he was successful and he won. But he had a lot of, he had a lot of time he had the best players. But isn't that the way it works? You combine the best players with the best coaches, and they win national championships.
Success breeds success. It's interesting. The GOAT that they talk about in pro football, of course, is Bill Belichick, who just left the New England Patriots. But I want to just draw a little comparison. The year after Tom Brady left the Patriots didn't do so well. Tom Brady won another world championship with Tampa Bay. Saban has to turn the team over every 4 years. Yeah. It's not like Brady played.
But listen, there are a lot of coaches especially the SEC who are glad to see him go.
Yeah.
Happy trails.
And
good
for
retirement.
more than one reason, because I'm reading who might one of the websites saying who might replace him. Well, Lane Kiffin is being offered. Dabo Sweeney, Steve Sarkisian.
So.
all of these other SEC coaches I think they could bring in. So
a man would be a fool to take that job,
or not to, really, just to follow the.
Well, now the paycheck would be good, I give you, but you're going to follow Nick Saban,
right?
What are you? Anything less than a national championship, you're going to be
10-2. They want to run you out of town, right?
Yeah. I don't know. A man would be
He set the bar so high, and the Alabama fan base, charitably, they're rabid, right, in favor of their coach and their school. So
I can see any of these coaches though saying, I can do it though, because they've got some ego. Deion Sanders is not being considered, but can you see him saying, "Oh yeah, I'll take that job. I'll take him to the national championship"? There's a lot of that in several coaches out there. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens there. Nick Saban, at age 72, has decided to retire as the head football coach at the University of Alabama. That is a big national story. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio. We were talking last hour, Steve, about the President Trump appeared on stage with Fox News last night at a town hall.
Yes.
As did Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, the Governor DeSantis.
Different town halls.
Not the nights before. But last night, Trump was asked about COVID. That's one of the things that people have been looking at. What was our country's COVID response? What was the response of President Trump and some of the governors? Anyway, Trump has decided to go after DeSantis on this, and then DeSantis has been responding to the COVID. So there's a little collage right here of President Trump when he was president talking about COVID, and Ron DeSantis wanted to play that.
Would you ever allow a shutdown in the future?
You're talking about a COVID shutdown?
Correct.
No, I wouldn't. And I never did.
We did the right thing. We closed the country down. Could have kept it open. And I could have done what some countries are doing. I had to shut it down, and we did the right thing.
Florida did shut down. Ron DeSantis shut down.
We're in a place called Florida, and we have a great governor.
A great governor knows exactly what he's doing. Terrific job. He just announced that the schools will be open.
The governor's done a great job. Florida is down low now in the China virus.
He shut his state down very violently. And you're open, and you didn't close, and it's just amazing, right? It's great.
One of the greatest governors in our country, and I know a lot of good ones, and I can tell you there's some really bad ones too, but this is a great one, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Well, my point is, one of Mr. Trump's faults is he will say one thing today and another thing altogether different 2 weeks from now, and not bat an eye. I got to give it to him for you know what I'm saying? A skilled politician, I guess you could say, Ray.
Well, look, all politicians do it, but Donald Trump has raised it to an art form.
Yeah, he's he's bashing DeSantis for shutting it down violently when he was saying he didn't shut it down when he was president. Anyway, all right, next topic.
Well, can I give you another example of another politician who kind of does the same thing?
Yes,
We've been
sir.
having a discussion about the border and the crisis at the border, and our president, Joe Biden, I read a headline where he's exhausted all his options. He's going after President Obrador down in Mexico to see if he can help, because he can't seem to get a handle on this now that his Democrat mayors in Democrat cities with Democrat voters are talking are complaining. Now he says he wants to do it, but what to do? He doesn't know. He's out of options. I want you to hear, I have an advisor for him, somebody he might want to listen to. This is a former senator from Delaware in 2007, cut 12.
It makes sense that no great nation can be in a position where they can't control their borders. It matters how you control your borders, not just for immigration, but it matters for drugs, terror, a whole range of other things. So I think what you have to do is you have to have a significant increase in the security at the border, including limited elements where you actually have a fence.
Build that wall there, Joe.
When was that?
That was Joe Biden in 2017 or 7 when he was
then Senator.
Then Senator Biden when he was running for president in 2007.
Yes.
Yeah, that's some good ideas he had right there.
Yeah, that was Joe Biden when his brain was firing on all cylinders.
Can you hear the difference when he speaks then?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You can just tell.
He was a much younger man,
Mm-hmm.
too, at the time. If only today Joe Biden would have followed what Joe Biden, the senator, had to say, our country would be a lot
Early
safer
Joe
and a lot
Biden,
better off.
late Joe Biden,
Yep.
very late Joe Biden.
Joe Biden when the Republicans in charge, and a Joe Biden when he's in charge. That's
right.
Yes.
One of the
Yeah.
differences.
Yeah, one of the frustrating things in politics, especially on a national level, is the way that both parties do it and people do it, and I guess it's human. They just flip flop depending on who your guy is, what team you're on, and that's a prime example right there. Biden making perfect sense. Who was president at the time? Was that George?
It was George Bush, but he was at the end of his second term. This was the first term that Barack Obama eventually won. He was running against Barack Obama. It was during the Democrat primaries at the time.
Oh, you mean Biden was running against Obama in the primary?
At the point where we heard that clip.
I got you.
Later, he was chosen as vice president, and they beat McCain and Palin.
Gotcha. Next topic.
All right. Someone explain to me what's going on with the politicians in Ohio. We have a governor there, Mike DeWine, who decided he wanted, a Republican, wanted to veto a bill which would have barred doctors from doing gender destruction surgery on minors and would have barred them from prescribing cross-sex hormones, would have kept boys out of girls' sports. He vetoed that bill. His legislature was Republican enough to go and override that veto, but he also signed an emergency executive order banning these gender mutilation surgeries.
Okay,
Same thing
okay.
that the first bill would have done.
Okay, first of all, this is very good news. Okay, in the sense that the Ohio state legislature, by an overwhelming margin, do you have the vote there?
It was around 60-something to 20-something.
They voted to veto, to override the veto of a sitting Republican governor. So a Republican legislature overrides a Republican governor, Ray. And so kudos to the state legislature there because they're protecting the children of the state of Ohio.
It took some courage to do that, to override the governor of your own party. So this was what's next now? Goes to the other side of the...
Goes to the Senate.
Yeah.
Do the Republicans have the votes over there?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
They do?
Override
Good.
them then.
Good. You know what I couldn't quite figure out, Steve, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Governor DeWine, he vetoed this at first. Well, he vetoed it. And then he came back like the next day or so and signed an executive order.
Right.
Almost overriding his own veto.
Well, there's a difference between those two things. The executive order will ban gender mutilation surgery as same thing as the bill he vetoed did, but it has nothing. It says nothing about men or boys and girls sports. It says nothing about cross-sex hormones. So why would a Republican governor approve of those things? Well, some are musing that, and because a review of donations from 2018 to 2023 found that he received more than $40,000 from 3 hospitals whom approve of cross-sex hormones and these surgeries. So
who did? DeWine?
DeWine did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're saying that's the reason he did that. That's what you're saying?
Some are speculating such.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, bottom line is great news out of
Yes.
Ohio that the Ohio State Legislature, at least the House, and Fred says the Senate, they will override the governor's veto, and the children of Ohio will be protected from this mutilation and hormone, giving them hormone therapy and all that. Is that
Puberty
same thing?
blockers, yeah.
And girls, boys won't be able to compete in girls' athletics.
Yeah. But we have to remind people that Joe Biden is going after these laws that are being passed in various states under Title IX. He says under Title IX, these boys who say they're girls should be allowed to play on girls' teams. So that's coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah. All right, next story, Steve.
All right. We keep musing about what happened on January 6th back in 2021.
Do we muse, Steve? Do we really?
We muse. We're
amused or we muse?
No, muse, M-U-S-E. We wonder. We speculate. Because what we heard from the January 6th commission that was put together by the Democrats didn't really ring true to a lot of people. And one of the sources that's saying that maybe something else was going on is actually Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins, who is part of a Republican-led House committee that's looking into January 6th. I want you to hear what he said. He said he believes that there were easily 200 FBI undercover agents operating in the crowd during the J6 riot at the Capitol, and that they worked with the local D.C. police, Metropolitan Police, and the Capitol Police to have these people let in. And he said that he believes there's evidence that they were there specifically to wave Trump supporters in that had gathered outside the Capitol. Their objective was to destroy the entire MAGA movement, says Higgins, to forever stain the patriotic fervor that was associated with the America First MAGA movement. So he is saying Democrats and the FBI instigated January 6th in order to get rid of Trump and Trump supporters.
Well, Trump was already gotten rid of as far as the election.
He's back.
President Trump.
You hadn't heard.
President Trump was leaving. Okay, that was.
Yes. Yes.
Well, let me just say this: he had already. He did leave. I should subsequent to that to January 6th. Does the Congressman of Louisiana have? Is he going to provide proof of this, or is this him? Is this him musing?
Well, no. Well, he's speaking from what they have gathered from reviewing video. This is the committee that he's doing. Part of the Republican committee to look into January 6th is finding quite a bit of different information than the other commission that was put together. So he's looking at videos, he's talking, he's doing interviews. And so what he says is, I want to be clear about the wording. I didn't even have the right. Here it is. The wording, he says, we believe that there were easily 200 undercover agents. So we being the committee, and believe meaning we can't prove it, as in we don't have the receipt, the document that says this was it, but our investigation supports that there may have been easily 200 FBI undercover agents inside the crowd.
Ray, you want to?
Well, the real significance here, Steve, is that you've got a sitting U.S. congressman who's willing to go on the record. As you said, we believe, right? So it's not a totally established fact, but I guess what he's saying is, taking everything into account, there is serious, credible evidence there were 200 at least federal agents involved.
Undercover FBI agents, yes.
Undercover agents who were egging on the crowd, right?
Right.
Egging them on to go, this isn't, there's been a lot of talk about that one fella, but this is way beyond that one man. You have 200 agents. You've got a planned, systematic, you've got a setup going on. Now, we say for our listeners, right, we believe. That's what the congressman says. We're just reporting, but this is really big news if it can actually be substantiated.
One of the things he presents as potential evidence, he says it is unfathomable. This is Congressman Clay Higgins speaking. It is unfathomable to believe that everyday Americans in Washington, D.C. would know how to navigate the Capitol without help. There's no way, quote, that they can come in some random door that gets opened and then get their way directly to Statuary Hall or the House chamber or the Senate chamber. It's just not possible. Someone who knew the Capitol was leading in there.
We'll have to wait and see. I'd like to see the proof. If we can get a whistleblower like we have in the past to confirm some of this, I think that becomes really big news.
Yeah. All right. Can I take you to Minnesota? There is a prison program there for the Department of Corrections. It's a Christian program that has been working for some 10 years. It's been very successful. They've had more than 1,000 inmates graduate, moved on to restored life in the community, according to the person his name is who runs this. His name is Anthony Schmidt. The program is called the Quest for Authentic Manhood. And that struck Jolene Robertus, who is the commissioner of the Department of Corrections there, the wrong way. This is what she said. She said, our Quest teaches participants about manhood through a lens of discrimination, exclusivity, gender bias, stereotypes that not only contradict the DOC's mission of providing fundamental transformational programming, but also violate their DEI requirements. And they've shut the program down. There's a lawsuit underway now.
And what's your opinion, Steve?
Well, I think that they should be able to. It's a voluntary program. No one's making these inmates go, and they have every right to go in and present an option to these men. Mm-hmm. Should be something like what Colson's prison fellowship would probably have a hard time operating these days.
So it's been, even though it's a voluntary program, no inmate is required to attend. It's been suspended.
Right. It directly conflicts with the diversity, equity, and inclusivity values of the DOC by defining manhood or the study of masculinity through a biblical lens of what a real man looks like. That's what they say in the lawsuit.
Wow.
So does that ministry get any federal money to do this?
I do not think so. I don't know. I didn't.
That's what usually happens. If you happen to get a grant from the federal government, then they start tying these DEI things to that grant.
Well, no, but they seem to believe that they have the right to set the mood inside the Department of Corrections, which I'm not sure they're wrong as far as that, but it's unconstitutional to do this according to what they have talked about with some prior precedents.
All righty. Well, we are about out of time here on the program. We appreciate everybody joining us. Ray, how does it feel not to have to be getting up, doing 30 minutes of Bible reading?
Well, it's amazing, Tim, the number of people who are doing it second year in a row. In some ways, I think our number of viewers is larger here in early January than it was a year ago. So people rode the Bible bus with us last year, and I have re-recorded Genesis and I'm re-recording Exodus. So we've got a lot of people who are – the Bible bus is still rolling, folks, so go to keepbelieving.com.
Did you get it wrong the first time? Why are you re-recording it?
You made a comment the other day about my gestures and so on. That sort of came in later in the year. I was more sedated. How about that?
I was watching Genesis 1:1, and you were pretty on point at that point. It was very entertaining and interesting and riveting, actually.
And those are the newer videos. So
okay.
Re-recording.
There you go.
To make a little. Anyway, come see us, folks, at keepbelieving.com.
Keepbelieving.com. If you don't know, Ray recorded Bible readings for all 365 days of 2023, and he went through the Bible and finished. So congratulations to Ray for accomplishing that project. And if you want to watch that, as he's talking about, go to keepbelieving.com, right, Ray?
That's it.
All right, my thanks to Fred, Steve, Ray, Chris, Alex, Jan, and Brent. Brent Creeley, our producer. Pretty good right there. You got to admit it, guys. I just reeled it off.
You did good.
Huh?
And several 100,000 listeners.
That's right.
Yes. All right, have a great day, everybody. Trivia Friday tomorrow. We'll see you back here for Learning University. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hope you're going to have a prosperous and healthy 2024. Hey, we're going to Washington.